Hey there, truth seekers. I'm Larry Litton, your guide through the maze of modern politics and power dynamics on liberty, leadership, and lies. Each episode will challenge the narratives, expose the lies, and celebrate the leaders who champion true liberty. Get ready to question, learn, and maybe even change your mind. So let's dive into the truth together. Good morning from Denver, Colorado this week, folks. I'm making the trek home this morning to return to my bride and my puppy. This is the best part of my coaching engagements, the return home, the reunion. When I walk in the door, my bride is the first to greet me with a huge hug and a kiss, and my puppy starts to get jealous and starts barking. I don't know if she's jealous because Denise is receiving or giving attention. After a few jumps, along with some barking and whining, I get down on the floor to give Harlow some loving. Yes, homecomings are the best part of being away. And as I informed you all in last week's episode, this will be a long stay at home with my bride as I'm taking a break from both my coaching and putting some episodes together. As it stands right now, I hope to have several interview episodes in the can before I take a break from the podcast, which is in about a month. But the break from my consulting, it starts today. All work and no play has definitely made Larry a dull boy. So I will be playing for a long time now. I wrapped up my latest engagement a bit different this time. I'm starting my return flight home out of the Denver airport instead of the Casper, Wyoming airport. And I'm doing this for a myriad of reasons. Chief among them is that the Casper airport did not have any four-wheel drive SUVs available to rent for the month that when I first arrived out here. Neither did the Rapid City, South Dakota airport, which would be the normal alternative. Since they are regional airports and Denver is a huge international airport, they had plenty of vehicles of the type and size needed for the work I do out here in Wyoming. I'm hoping this isn't the case for my next trip out here later this year. Adding a 5 or 7 hour drive on top of my final day with the teams in Wyoming in order to get to Denver to catch a flight, it's proven to be a bit exhausting and a logistical nightmare. So wish me luck for my next visit. I'll be sure and let you know how it works out. Before I forget, I want to give a shout out to some really good friends on their daughter's recent engagement. I followed the news on social media and congratulated them there, but seeing how they are some of the earliest followers of this show, I made the executive decision to mention it on the program. Sean and Serenity, congratulations once again. Hopefully, I will be home during the time of the wedding so I can watch this union of two children of God in person. I'm looking forward to seeing how the future plays out for this young couple. I would also like to congratulate their son on his decision on continuing his education, as well as the decision to serve our nation in the armed forces. Well done to all. With all that being said, let's take a stand in the arena together again this week, folks, as we discuss leadership accountability and how our current crop of elected officials, they avoid that situation like the plague. In addition to obfuscating the facts of their pretend legislation that always has at its roots the erosion of the people's liberty. So here we go. Welcome to Liberty, Leadership, and Lies, the podcast where we unravel the complex web of politics, power, and deception. Each week, we dive into the stories behind the headlines, exploring how liberty is eroded and the selfishness of our political leaders, as well as the lies that shape our world. Join us as we dissect the truth from fiction by examining the tactics used by the new aristocracy, the political class, at the local, state, and national levels of government as we dare to challenge the status quo. Get ready for thought-provoking discussions, exclusive interviews, and a journey into the heart of what really drives our society. Liberty, Leadership, and Lies, where your understanding of the world begins to change. Tune in every Monday morning and prepare to see beyond the veil. Once again, good morning, everyone. Today, I want to address a critical issue that erodes the foundation of our republic, the hiding of data by government entities and how it destroys public trust. When governments withhold or fail to collect essential data, whether intentionally or through neglect. I think we all know where I feel on this. They create a veil of secrecy that breeds suspicion, undermines accountability, and alienates the very people they serve. We'll discuss the current obfuscation or covering up of data happening right now in our great state of Tennessee, and it is most likely happening in the states across the Republic. If you don't live in Tennessee, you should, as the taxpaying citizens of those other states and that have these education voucher schemes already passed or in the process of being considered, you need to exercise your due diligence and find out this truth for yourselves. But continuing, here in Tennessee, this obfuscation is being done by the very people we elect to serve us in a transparent manner. That would be Governor Lee and his principal mafia-like capos in the General Assembly, Speaker Cameron Sexton, Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, along with Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally and House Majority Leader William Lamberth. They are doing it with the misnamed Tennessee's Education Freedom Scholarship Program. It really should be labeled as the special interest legislation that created a school stamps program. But anyway, before we get started, though, let's consider what trust in government means. Trust is built on transparency, not obfuscation, and on accountability. Trust is also built on the belief that public institutions act in the best interests of citizens. Recent reporting here in Tennessee has revealed the obfuscation is in high gear as it relates to the school voucher scheme and not collecting prior private school enrollments of children that are going to be receiving these vouchers. There have been various reasons provided by our elected officials in Nashville for not collecting this data, but considering all the machinations we were witnesses to behind pushing this program through using a special session and placing this tax burden on the people of the volunteer state, we must consider other reasons for not collecting this vital data. A nefarious reason for not collecting data on private prior public school enrollment for these school stamp recipients, it could be to obscure the extent to which the program benefits families already enrolled in private schools, potentially masking a subsidy for wealthier households, which are primarily donors to the establishment class in Nashville. And then rather than expanding access for low-income families as they sold to us. By not tracking this data, policymakers or program administrators are avoiding scrutiny over whether the scholarships are primarily redirecting public funds to families who are already affording private education rather than serving the intended purpose, the one they sold us on, of helping underserved students access new educational opportunities. This lack of transparency conceals inefficiencies or misallocations in the program, making it harder to evaluate its true impact and will make it difficult to hold officials accountable for ensuring equitable distribution of funds. When a brand new government entitlement program like the Education Freedom Scholarships fails to collect or share key data, such as whether scholarship recipients were already enrolled in private schools before receiving the funds, it raises red flags, doesn't it? So why does this matter? Because data is the currency of accountability. Without this data, the citizens can't evaluate whether a program is achieving its stated goals, like helping low-income families access better education, or if it's merely funneling public funds to those already in private schools. Just look to what has been revealed by DOGE at the national level over the course of the past 6 months. Our government, with its immediate access to our sweat equity through tax policies, has become quite proficient at wasting our tax dollars, in addition to spending it for their personal benefit and not for the people of this country or of this state. So, dear listeners, imagine you're a taxpayer in Tennessee. You're told these school stamp vouchers are designed to give underserved students a chance at private education. But if the state doesn't track whether recipients were already private school students, how can you know if the program is truly expanding access? Or is it just subsidizing families who don't need the help? Hiding or Omitting this data, that obfuscation, it creates a perception that the government has something to conceal. Perhaps that the program benefits wealthier households more than intended. When data is withheld, it stifles informed debate. In the case of the school stamp scheme, without enrollment data, policymakers, educators, and the public cannot have an honest conversation about the program's effectiveness. Is it transforming lives, or is it a poorly disguised giveaway? Without evidence, speculation takes over. But past history of government spending almost inevitably leads us to the latter conclusion. That has caused we, the people, to assume the worst. Maybe the government is covering something up, mismanagement, or worse, deliberately skewing the program to favor certain groups. This assumption isn't just cynicism, it is a natural response when transparency is absent. Studies like those from the Pew Research Center show that trust in government plummets when citizens feel they are being kept in the dark. Only 20% of Americans trusted the federal government to do what's right most of the time in recent surveys. I would be interested to see the Pew Research Center do that same study at the individual state levels, especially after COVID. So let's go over some facts about Tennessee. According to the Tennessee Department of Education, 237 private schools have registered or signaled intent to participate in this school stamp scheme for the 2025-2026 school year. These schools are located in 35 of Tennessee's 95 counties. And according to this legislation, only category 1, 2, or 3 private schools in Tennessee are eligible to accept funds under this Billy's Purchase of a Legacy program. The 35 counties with participating schools represent approximately 36% of Tennessee's counties. That sounds universal, doesn't it? Anyway, at least that is how it was sold to the apathetic voters here, universal access. This leaves 60 counties, which is 64% of 95, without participating private schools. According to the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development and other sources, approximately 70 of Tennessee's 95 counties are considered rural, which is typically defined as having a population density below a certain threshold, for example, less than fewer than 150 people per square mile, or lacking a metropolitan statistical area. To estimate the number of rural counties among the 60 without private voucher scheme participating schools, we can use the proportion of rural counties in Tennessee. Since 70 out of 95 counties are rural, which is approximately 74%, we can assume a similar proportion applies to the 60 counties without participating schools. So it is likely that this scheme vastly benefits non-rural counties in our state. Let's rank the top 5 counties based upon the number of eligible private schools, and it's derived from the most recent data available on the Tennessee Department of Education's website. Number 1 is Shelby County with 50 schools, closely followed by number 2, Davidson County with 43 schools. 3 through 5 are Knox, Hamilton, and Williamson counties, respectively. Accordingly, from this data, we can most likely deduce that rural Tennessee is footing the bill for private education for the primarily wealthiest 5 counties in the state. I would be willing to suggest that the biggest donors to the political establishment here in Tennessee also reside in those counties. Same thing for the organizations funded by out-of-state big money interests. They probably have their headquarters in those counties as well. What do you think? So, and just like we are all now paying to subsidize Ford Motor Company's Blue Oval City, the Tennessee Titans' new stadium, and a myriad of other ventures where the government and those that occupy positions with it, they are picking winners and losers in the free market using our tax dollars against us. Again. Continuing though, hiding data undermines the governing process necessary to the function of our state and our republic. Citizens rely on information to hold elected officials accountable, whether through voting, advocacy, or public discourse. If Tennessee's Department of Education doesn't collect or share data on prior private school enrollment, it's impossible to assess whether the program aligns with its stated mission. This lack of transparency or obfuscation often correctly leads to accusations of cronyism or corruption. For example, if most scholarship funds are going to families already in private schools, critics might argue the program is a backdoor subsidy for the affluent, not a lifeline for the underserved. Without data to refute or confirm this, trust erodes further. As citizens, we feel powerless to verify the truth. So, what's the alternative? Transparency. Governments must collect and share relevant data, even if it reveals uncomfortable truths. For the education voucher program, tracking prior enrollment would allow Tennesseans to see exactly who benefits and whether the program is meeting its goals. Openness invites scrutiny, yes, but it also builds credibility. When governments share data, warts and all, they signal they have nothing to hide. This fosters trust, encourages public engagement, and strengthens our Republican form of government. So, in conclusion, hiding data, whether by omission or design, destroys public trust by creating suspicion, stifling debate, and weakening accountability. You all know this is most likely by design, though, right? I'm going to pause right here for a break and come back with something a bit different in the next segment. So stick with me. I'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to direct this segment to the members of our state government. Please forgive me for speechifying during this part of the podcast. But if you enjoy and agree with what you are about to hear, you need to share it with your elected members of the General Assembly. Share it with our trans-Republican Governor Bill Lee as well. They need to know we will hold them accountable for their failure to hold themselves accountable. With that, here is my address to the elected officials here in Tennessee. Good morning, elected members of the Tennessee General Assembly and Governor Lee, servants of the people of our awesome volunteer state. Today, I want to address a principle that lies at the heart of public service: accountability. As elected officials, you are entrusted with the immense responsibility of serving the people of Tennessee, our families, our communities, and our future. Accountability is not just a buzzword. It is the foundation of trust between you and the citizens who elected you. It is the commitment to transparency, integrity, and measurable results in the policies you enact. Today, I call on you to uphold this principle, particularly in the implementation of Tennessee's recently passed school voucher program, and specifically in the critical task of collecting and reporting data on prior public school or private school enrollment. Let me begin by acknowledging the weight of your roles. It's a role I twice sought to serve in, at great expense to my family and to my fortune. As legislators and as governor, you make decisions that shape the lives of millions. The school voucher program, a significant policy shift, is one such decision. Promising to expand educational opportunities for Tennessee families, this program diverts public funds to private schools through vouchers. It creates a new government entitlement program, something that is contrary to constitutional, conservative, and Republican Party principles. Supporters argue it offers parents choice, never considering that parents already had that choice, but you have now provided them with taxpayer-funded means and conflated the two words of means and choice to somehow have the same definition. Now, critics warn that it risks undermining public education, which is already a constitutionally mandated function of our state's government. You all created an additional problem without solving the real problem. Failing institutions of education already wholly controlled by you and the government. But regardless of where we stand on this issue, one truth is undeniable. Without robust accountability, this program and your leadership cannot earn the trust of Tennesseans. Accountability begins with clarity. When you passed the voucher program, you promised it would serve students who needed it most. Those in underperforming public schools, those with families that lack the means to access alternatives. Yet a critical question now remains unanswered. How many voucher recipients were already enrolled in private schools before the program began? This is not a trivial detail. It is a fundamental measure of whether the program is meeting its intended purpose or simply subsidizing families who are already paying private school tuition. Without this data, we cannot evaluate the program's impact, its fairness, or its cost effectiveness. And without this evaluation, you cannot claim to be accountable to the people of Tennessee. Governor Lee, I address you directly. Reports suggest your administration has resisted calls to collect and disclose data on prior private school enrollment. This is deeply concerning. Hiding from this responsibility undermines the very principles of governance you pledge to uphold. If the voucher program is truly designed to help underserved students, why shy away from proving it? If the data shows that a significant number of voucher recipients were already in private schools, that's not a failure of the program. It's a failure of transparency if you refuse to share that truth. Tennesseans deserve to know how their tax dollars are being spent and whether this program delivers on its promises. To the members of the Tennessee General Assembly, and especially to my state senator and state representative, Senator Seal and Representative Ashley, you have the power and the duty to demand the data. Accountability is not a one-time act. It's an ongoing commitment. When you pass the voucher legislation, you set the stage for a transformative policy. But transformation without oversight is reckless. You must ensure that the Department of Education collects detailed, disaggregated data on voucher recipients, including their prior school enrollment status, public, private, or homeschool. This data must be publicly reported, not buried in bureaucratic obscurity. Only then can you, as legislators, assess whether the program aligns with its stated goals and make informed decisions about its future. Let's talk about why this bit of accountability matters. Tennessee's public schools educate over 90% of our children. They are the backbone of our communities, staffed by some dedicated teachers, but supported by our taxpayers. The voucher program, by diverting public funds, directly impacts these schools. If vouchers are primarily benefiting families already in private schools, the program risks becoming a taxpayer-funded subsidy for the affluent rather than a lifeline for the disadvantaged. Without data, we're left guessing. And guessing is not governing. Accountability demands evidence, not assumptions. Moreover, accountability is about trust. Tennesseans elected you to make decisions in their best interest, not to obscure the outcomes of those decisions. When you fail to collect or share critical data, you erode the public's confidence in your leadership. A recent poll by the Tennessee Education Association, I know, odd for me to cite a leftist institution, but this is important. The TEA found that 68% of voters want greater transparency in how voucher funds are used. They're not asking for perfection, they're asking for honesty. By ensuring data on prior private school enrollment is collected and made public, you can show Tennesseans that you value their trust and are committed to delivering results. Let me be clear, accountability is not about casting blame. It's about taking responsibility. If the data reveals that the voucher program is not reaching the students it was intended to serve, That is an opportunity to refine the policy, not a reason to hide. If the data confirms the program's success, that's a victory you should celebrate and share. Either way, the truth is your ally. As elected officials, you have the chance to model courage by embracing transparency, even when the findings challenge your assumptions. I urge you to take specific, immediate actions. First, amend the voucher program's guidelines to mandate the collection of prior enrollment data for all voucher recipients. Second, require the Department of Education to publish this data annually in a clear, accessible format. Third, hold public hearings to discuss the findings and their implications for Tennessee's education system. These steps are not burdensome, they are essential. They demonstrate that you are not afraid to be held accountable for the policies you champion. Governor Lee, you have championed this voucher program as a bold step forward, but using questionably constitutional actions to force it upon the citizens of Tennessee, as well as holding hurricane relief for Tennesseans hostage just to get this bill over the finish line. I challenge you to match that boldness with accountability. Lead by example. Direct your administration to collect and release this data without delay. Show Tennesseans that you're not hiding from the truth, but embracing it as a tool to build a better future for our students. To the General Assembly, you are the voice of your constituents. They expect you to ask the hard questions and demand the answers. Use your oversight authority to ensure the voucher program is implemented with integrity. Hold the administration accountable. Hold yourselves accountable. The people of Tennessee are watching, and they will judge you not just by the laws you passed, but by how you ensure those laws serve the public good. In closing my address to you, elected officials, I want to stress this. Accountability is the cornerstone of our republic. It is what separates leadership from power. As you navigate the complexities of the voucher program, remember that your duty is not to defend policy at all costs, but to defend the trust of the people who elected you. Collecting and sharing data on prior private school enrollment is not a technicality. It is a moral and practical necessity. It is how you prove that the voucher program is more than a promise. It is a policy that delivers for Tennessee's children. I implore you, as leaders of this great state, I implore you to act with courage, transparency, and resolve. Collect the data, share the truth, be accountable. Tennessee's families, students, and future depend on it. Thank you. All right, so please stick with me through the next break, ladies and gentlemen, when I come back with my closing thoughts and along with this week's wisdom from God's Word. I'll be right back. That's it for this week, folks. Don't forget to smash that like button on the Rumble or YouTube version of this episode. As always, if you like the content, please share it on your social media accounts and with everyone in your contact list, especially my address to the governor and the rest of the members of the General Assembly. Once again, though, congratulations go out to my good friends Sean and Serenity, their future son-in-law Brett and daughter Isabel, as well as their son Josiah. I expect to see great things for all of them in the future. Next week's episode will be the kickoff of a multi-part interview with Adam Brandon from the Independence Center. Oh yeah, and before I forget, here's the weekly reminder about the annual Freedom Festival that is scheduled for October 4th over here in Loudon, Tennessee. Again, they already have a bunch of great speakers and entertainers lined up. For more information, visit their website. It is tcgc1776.org. Again, tcgc1776.org. I also want to remind the audience that I'll be taking a break from the show, as well as my work, for the month of August. In closing, this week's wisdom from God's Word comes to us from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 36. But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. Accountability is a coin, ladies and gentlemen. Not only do our elected officials who shirk this concept while representing their constituents, as well as shirk their accountability to their oaths, these people will be held accountable for the empty words they have spoken to we the people. But every citizen is also accountable to future generations to pass down the blessings of liberty our forefathers passed down to us. We are accountable to our duty for citizenship in a republic each day, and especially in each election cycle, that we ignore our duty and responsibility and accountability. Our children and grandchildren will pay a much larger price than we are paying right now in allowing the cancerous growth of tyranny. We need to demand accountability from our elected officials and demand accountability from each other. Each time our government tries to hide data and facts from the taxpayers in this state and around the nation, they are doing so with malicious intent. Our call to action today and every day is to demand transparency and accountability from those who serve in elected office. That is why we all must take a stand in the arena. Till next week, Reveille, it's time to wake up.